Ariana nearly collapsed when she read the facts. I watched her from the hallway, separated only by a pane of glass she had chosen for transparency. Her fingers tightened on the paper, her posture sinking as if the words themselves carried weight. I could not hear what she whispered to herself, but the tremor in her hand told me enough. Something in her world had cracked open. 2 hours earlier. None of this had happened yet. I stepped into the elevator from the 7th floor, still reviewing the retention reports we had built together back when the company fit inside a basement office. The doors began to close, then slid open again as Ariana hurried in with a paper cup. She looked polished, rested, polished in a way that made me feel like I had missed a memo. The elevator lurched slightly. The coffee in her hand tipped just enough to splash across my sleeve. "Oh," I said, instinctively stepping back. She did not apologize. She barely looked at me. Instead, she offered a small, practiced smile. "One small mistake can cost you your place here. Lucy, you know how fast things move." The tone caught me off guard. It was not playful, not teasing, not the familiar voice of the woman who once shared instant noodles with me on nights when our servers crashed. This voice was flat, careful, already rehearsed. "It was just a bump," I said quietly, more to myself than to her. Ariana pressed the button for the top floor. "Nothing is just anything anymore. Not at this stage." The elevator doors opened. She stepped out first, leaving the faint scent of roasted beans and something colder, almost metallic. I stared at my sleeve, then at her retreating silhouette, a tightness forming between my ribs. I had felt distance growing for weeks, but this was different. This felt deliberate. I walked toward my office to change, still replaying her words, still unsure why a simple accident felt like the start of something larger. My phone buzzed with a calendar update from Human Resources. A meeting had been added for late afternoon. No title, no explanation, only my name. 7 years earlier, South Lake Union felt like the center of the universe, even though our entire office was a rented basement across from Lake Union Park that smelled like dust and overheated wires. Ariana and I worked shoulder to shoulder on a folding table we found on an online marketplace for $20. We shared one aging laptop whose fan squealed every time we opened more than 3 tabs. She nudged my elbow as the server crashed again. "If this thing dies tonight, we die with it. We have instant noodles," I reminded her. "We'll survive." Ariana laughed, the kind of laugh that made the long nights feel less impossible. "Then let's build something worth losing sleep over." We stayed until sunrise more nights than I can count, eating noodles straight from the pot and rebooting our test servers until our eyes burned. Whenever I drifted toward doubt, she caught it immediately. "Lucy," she'd say, tapping my screen, "you're the only person I'd start a company with. Remember that." One night, the power went out across the entire block. The basement went dark, leaving the sound of rain hammering the windows. Ariana used her phone flashlight as we sat cross-legged on the floor, the laptop finally silent. "This is stupid," she whispered, scribbling notes on a sheet of paper. "We built everything on trust. We should protect it. That's what governance documents are for," I said, but she shook her head. "Not the legal kind, the personal kind." She wrote it out carefully. "If either founder is removed without cause, the removed founder may buy back full ownership for $1. A promise," she said, handing me the pen. "No matter how big we get." I signed without hesitation. Looking back now, I can still hear her voice in that basement, and I know the woman who said those words is not the same woman who spilled coffee on me in the elevator. Ariana's assistant appeared at my doorway just after lunch, her tone too formal to be casual. "Ariana would like to see you. Now, please." The executive floor felt colder than usual as I stepped inside. Ariana stood by the window of her corner office, the skyline reflected in the glass. She did not turn when I entered. She did not offer a seat. "Close the door." "Lucy." I did. My palms felt damp. She faced me with an expression so composed it bordered on blank. "The honeymoon is over. Lucy, you're fired." For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. "Ariana, what are you talking about misalignment?" she said, brushing imaginary dust from her sleeve. "A strategic shift we are making. You know how these things go. That doesn't explain anything." She sighed, as if I were inconveniencing her. "There has been board pressure, concerns about direction, concerns about leadership balance. This is the right time to part ways." I stared at her. We built this together. Her lips barely moved. And now it is time to evolve past the founder stage. Her phone buzzed. She checked it mid-conversation, dismissing me with a tilt of her chin. "Human Resources will send you the documents. It should all be straightforward." I felt the floor tilt slightly beneath me. "Ariana, at least tell me what really changed." "It is not personal," she replied. Her tone ice-thin. "Print the paperwork and sign it. Let us keep this clean." When I stepped into the hallway, my inbox pinged. The message subject line read, "Please print this out and sign." There was no greeting, no explanation, no acknowledgement of 7 years of work. A security guard I barely recognized appeared beside me. "I'll escort you down." "Ms. Alden. Ms. Alden, not Lucy." I walked toward the elevator, each step feeling strangely distant, as if someone else were moving my legs for me. The moment I reached my car, I opened my laptop on the passenger seat and tried to log into the product dashboard. The screen blinked once, then returned a red banner. "Access denied. Contact your administrator." I tried again. Same message. I switched to our analytics tool. Another denial. Then the engineering repository. Locked. Every system I had helped build, every line of work tied to my name, was gone in seconds. My phone buzzed. Slack notifications evaporated one by one until the workspace itself disappeared. I typed my credentials. "User not found." A sharp pulse of heat hit the back of my neck. I stepped out of the car and tried my side door badge, the one only founders and senior engineers used when staying late. The light blinked yellow, then red. I pressed it again. Red. "Hey, Lucy." A voice came from behind me. It was Jonah, a junior product manager Ariana had hired last year. He held a folder to his chest like a shield. "I didn't know you were still here." "Still here." My voice cracked sharper than I intended. He looked anywhere but at me. "I think there were changes. Just take care." "Okay." He rushed across the parking lot without waiting for me to respond. The pieces snapped together, access revokes, disappearing channels, the scripted firing, the coffee spill that came with a warning. Ariana had not made a sudden decision in that office. She had engineered this step by step, clearing paths behind her, erasing connections ahead of me. I sat behind the wheel, hands frozen on the steering column, staring at the badge that no longer meant anything. For the first time since the elevator, the truth pricked at me with real force. Ariana wanted me gone long before she said the words. The apartment was silent when I walked in, the kind of silence that made every thought louder. I dropped my bag on the kitchen counter, then opened the drawer beneath it. My hands hesitated for a second before pulling out the worn, fireproof folder I had not touched in years. Inside was the original founder's agreement paper, edges curled, signatures slightly faded. Ariana and I had signed it in that basement across from Lake Union Park, back when trust felt stronger than any contract. I spread the pages on the table and read them line by line. No amendments, no replacements, no glossy versions from the venture capital rounds. Just the document we wrote when we were too tired to stand and too determined to quit. Then I saw it. Section 9C, Founder Buyback Provision. Our handwriting. Our promise. If either founder was removed without cause, the removed founder had the right to buy back full ownership of the company for $1. A shock moved through me, not fear this time. but something steadier, a cold clarity. Ariana had fired me clean, without naming cause, without documentation, without warning. No misconduct, no violation, no grounds. The clause was alive. I picked up my phone and called Mason Ritter. He answered on the second ring. "Lucy, you never call this late. I need you to look at Section 9C of our original agreement," I said. "Tell me if it still holds." There was a rustle of papers, then silence, then a low exhale. "They never replaced it," Mason said. "Not once. It is fully enforceable under Washington state corporate law." I closed my eyes, letting the weight of his words settle. The trap Ariana forgot was already locked in place, and she had walked straight into it. Mason arrived at my apartment just after sunrise, a stack of documents tucked under his arm. He placed them on the table without ceremony. "This is the formal notice," he said. "And this," he tapped a single sheet, "is the $1 instrument." I read each line carefully. No shaking hands. No second guessing. This was not vengeance. This was honoring a promise Ariana and I wrote when we still believed in each other. Mason handed me the pen. "Whenever you're ready." I signed my name in steady strokes. The next morning, I returned to the building as a visitor. The lobby guard barely glanced at me before handing over a temporary badge. It felt strange walking through the same halls I had helped design. Now, as someone who did not belong to them, Mason's fax was scheduled to arrive at 9:15. I walked to the executive floor at 9:13. Ariana's office was impossible to miss, a glass-walled corner space meant to project openness, though she rarely used it that way. I stopped a few feet away, standing where she could not see me but where I had a clear view of her desk. Her assistant placed a sheet on top of Ariana's inbox. Ariana picked it up, eyes narrowing at the header. "Notice of exercised buyback clause, Section 9C. She read the first line, then the second. Her grip tightened. The paper trembled. "No," she whispered, the word forming behind the glass, though I could not hear her voice. She grabbed the edge of her desk as her posture collapsed inward, legs stiffening as if the floor had tilted. For the first time, she understood what her firing decision had triggered. Her gaze lifted toward the hallway, searching for someone to blame. I remained where I stood, calm and silent, letting the truth settle between us. By late afternoon, the board had assembled on the top floor, a room usually used for investor celebrations and glossy product demos. Today, the energy was nothing close to triumphant. Voices were already raised when I stepped out of the elevator, careful to remain near the doorway, unseen. Ariana stood at the end of the table, knuckles white against the polished wood. Human resources mishandled the termination. They failed to document cause. "This is not on me. Janet from legal cut her off immediately. You personally insisted on a clean firing. No cause, no documentation. Your words, Ariana." Ariana glared at her. "I followed your guidance." "You ignored it," Janet snapped. "And because of that, Section 9C is fully enforceable. We cannot dispute it." The room erupted. An investor slammed his folder shut. "Do you understand what you triggered? You handed the company back for $1. A director leaned forward, voice hard. "You fired the wrong founder." Ariana's breath stuttered. She looked from face to face, searching for support. None came. "I can fix this," she insisted. "Give me a day. You had 7 years, another board member cut in, and you chose to push out the person who built the core algorithms we sell." Janet gathered the scattered papers. "The transfer is already in motion. Mason Ritter filed the documents correctly. There is no reversing this." Ariana's posture slumped, her confidence evaporating under the weight of their stares. For the first time since the founding days, she looked small, trapped, cornered. One investor stood. "We will reconvene in 24 hours. Until then, you are to make no unilateral decisions." Ariana did not argue. She simply lowered her gaze, absorbing the consequences she had created with her own hands. The transition meeting was held in a smaller conference room on the 5th floor, far from the glass palace where Ariana once ruled. When I walked in, she was already seated, back straight, chin lifted, trying to rebuild the confidence she had lost in front of the board. She did not greet me. "Let us skip the theatrics," she said. "I assume this is where you tell me to pack my things." "No," I replied, pulling out a chair. "Sit. We have work to do." Her eyes narrowed. "Work after everything you just did." "What I did," I said, keeping my voice steady, "was enforce what we both agreed to 7 years ago. Now I am offering you a role in repairing the fallout from your decisions." Ariana leaned back, scoffing. "You want me to stay under you for 3 months," I said, sliding a folder across the table. "A transitional leadership agreement. You will help stabilize the teams you disrupted, restore communication channels, prepare the company for long-term leadership." She did not touch the folder. "This is humiliation. This is accountability." I said, "And you know the company needs someone who understands the chaos you created." Ariana's fingers twitched. "Why would you give me that kind of responsibility? You could replace me today." "I could," I said, meeting her gaze. "But a clean takeover does not undo the damage. The people you pushed out deserve a proper handoff, not another abrupt shift." Her breath caught for a moment, anger tangled with something softer, something almost like regret. "And if I refuse, then the board will handle your departure," I said, "and they will not be as patient as I am." The room went silent except for the sound of the pen as she finally opened the folder. Her jaw tightened as she read through the terms. 3 months of reporting directly to me. No unilateral decisions. Full cooperation. After a long pause, she signed her name. When she pushed the document back toward me, her hand shook ever so slightly. The first morning of the transition felt nothing like the company I had left. Teams stood in tight, cautious clusters, speaking in low voices, waiting to see what version of leadership would walk through the door. I gathered the remaining managers in the old collaboration room, the one Ariana once called unstructured chaos. "From today forward," I said, "transparency is not optional. If you have concerns, say them. If you see problems, raise them. We rebuild together or not at all." Mark from engineering stepped forward first. "Can we bring back the weekly alignment sessions? The real ones, without the branding filters." "Yes," I said. "Starting tomorrow." Nina from operations added, "We need access restored to the tools Ariana restricted. That will happen today. No locked doors unless they involve payroll or private data." As the meeting dissolved, people moved with a little more purpose than when they had entered. Not enthusiasm yet, but relief. In the days that followed, we reversed the most damaging cuts. Senior engineers who had been sidelined returned to active projects. The product team rebuilt communication channels Ariana had quietly shut down. I sat with teams one by one, listening to what they had endured: unrealistic deadlines, sudden reorganizations, decisions made in secret. Ariana watched most of this from a distance. She attended the mandatory check-ins, took careful notes, and completed the tasks assigned to her, but her voice no longer carried authority. When she spoke, it was measured, cautious, stripped of the certainty she once wielded. One afternoon, she stepped into my temporary office. "I did not realize how many people I hurt," she said quietly. "You pushed too hard," I replied, "and you forgot who helped you build this." She nodded once. No excuses, no defense, and then she left. 2 weeks later, the first group of former employees returned. Jonah approached me after rejoining the product team. "It feels different now," he said, "like the place we started with." I smiled. That is the goal. By the 3rd month, the halls buzzed with life again, real collaboration, real momentum. And with the company stabilizing, A new decision pressed at the edges of my thoughts. The next phase needed a leader suited for it. Someone steady, principled, and unshaken by ego. It was almost time to choose who that would be. The final day of the transition arrived quietly, almost gently. No board members waited in the hallway. No assistants hovered with clipboards. Just Ariana, standing outside my temporary office with her badge in her hand. She placed it on my desk without a word. The light glinted off the laminated surface. For a moment, she held her breath, then released it in a slow, steady exhale. "This is the last thing I owe the company," she said. "You did your part." I replied, "More than I expected." A faint, strained smile crossed her face. "I should have listened sooner. Maybe," I said. "But we move forward from here." She nodded once, the smallest gesture of acceptance, and turned to leave. No theatrics, no apologies, just an ending she finally stopped fighting. When the door closed behind her, I opened the folder sitting at the corner of my desk. Inside were 2 documents: the formal transfer of responsibilities and the offer letter for the new chief executive officer. I walked upstairs to the large conference room where the leadership team waited. May Hartley sat among them, hands folded neatly in her lap. May had been a mid-level engineering manager, quiet, deliberate, persistent. Ariana overlooked her talent, dismissed her questions, ignored her warnings. The rest of the team, however, trusted her without hesitation. I handed her the envelope. May's eyes widened. "Lucy, are you sure I want someone who listens?" I said, sitting beside her. "Someone who makes decisions with the team, not above it. Someone who knows how to build without tearing people down." She looked around the room. Every face reflected the same belief. "Then I will do the job the way it should be done." The team applauded softly, not out of ceremony, but relief. After the meeting, I drove home to Capitol Hill, pulled the framed $1 clause from its packaging, and hung it above my desk. The ink had faded over the years, but the intent remained sharp. Not a trophy, not a victory lap, a reminder. Trust is a foundation, but foresight is survival. 2 days later, the headline appeared across Seattle's tech feeds: "Founders Pact Saves Startup the $1 that rebuilt a unicorn." I closed my laptop, the glow reflecting off the framed clause, and felt the weight of both the past and the future settle into place.